So I do a lot of videos about insurance, like how to be successful as an insurance adjuster, how to figure out what type of role you want to do in the insurance industry. But what do you do when you finally get the interview? How do you succeed in that interview?
You in the past, I'm in the future. You mad, they don't salute you. I need a back.
Thank you guys so much for clicking on this video. If you're new here, my name is Keela Trishan and I make videos on lifestyle, insurance, and mental health. I do vlogs, day in the life in the insurance industry, day in the life of the toddler, all the things. So if that's something that interests you, go on ahead and click that subscribe button below. Be sure to turn on your notifications so you don't miss anything from me. And if you're returning, thank you so much for coming back and thank you for your support. Okay, so I do have to give credit where credit is due. I did get this video idea from a subscriber. She asked me if I had any videos on my channel talking about how to interview when you get into the insurance industry. So I had already planned on doing a video about how to interview remotely, since a lot of interviews right now are done away from the office, but I figure why not take this idea because it makes so much sense for the channel. So today I'm going to be giving you some tips just on what to be cognizant about if you get an insurance interview, things that your interviewer is going to want to hear you talk about, and just kind of a couple of things about appearance. So if you're interested, if you have an interview coming up, or if you just kind of need some pointers for interviewing in general, definitely go on ahead and stay tuned. Okay, so most interviews are going to be the same, where they're going to kind of ask you to go over what's in your resume. So an interview is basically them putting a face to the name and you bringing that resume to life. Now, in insurance, there's going to be specific things that they're looking for in an individual that's going to be working with the public. So my first tip for acing an insurance interview is to make sure that you play up your customer service skills. Now, if you are new to working, like if this is your first job, then you might want to talk about how you interact with others and just kind of like how you are of service. But customer facing positions are going to require customer service skills. So you want to really kind of play on that, talk about your wins in customer service, and just talk about how you navigate through like issues with people. The thing with insurance claims is that you're dealing with a few different things. So you want to obviously make your customer happy and you want to have them on your side. You want them to know that you're there for them, that you're advocating for them, and that you're handling their claim in a timely manner. But you also have to adhere to their policy. You're not able to pay more than what the policy allows. You're not able to pay more than what can be proved as owed, that kind of thing. And also, you don't want to come off in a way where it looks like you're being dishonest, or it looks like you're not trying to help your customer, because then you have to deal with the Department of Insurance if they choose to file a complaint. So being in customer service, being in insurance on the claim side, you want to kind of play up your customer service skills and how you strive to make your customers happy, make the public happy, and essentially not be a liability for the company. Okay, so kind of tying into that first tip, the second thing that you're really going to want to play up in your insurance interview is your problem solving skills. Now, this is not something that can be taught really. It's kind of something that I feel like you learn with experience. Some people are going to be better than others, but the last thing you want to do is be in a situation where you're adding to the problem and not helping to resolve the issue. So problem solving and customer service works hand in hand, because it's inevitable when you're dealing with someone's damaged vehicle or someone's damaged home, or let's say a workers' comp claim, whatever. You're dealing with money, and money is subjective. So what the insurance company says is owed may not be what the person thinks is owed, or how you're handling something may not be how the person that you're helping thinks it should be handled. So you really want to have good problem solving skills, and this is something that you want to try to convey to your interviewer, either through past jobs, through like if you've been on a sports team or something like that, how you resolved issues with your teammates, that kind of thing. They really want to see kind of what your thought process is. It's not rocket science. It's not something that you should be scared of, but they want to see that you are willing to make your customers comfortable, and that you're comfortable dealing with issues, and kind of like have that thought process to where you can help get things resolved before they escalate. So that's something that you're really going to want to play up, is how you, in your personal life, in your work life, how you solve problems. Okay, so my third tip for doing well and acing an insurance interview is to talk about your organizational skills. So what I mean specifically is like, how do you set up your day? What are your routines? How do you make sure that you get everything you need to get done in a timely manner? And this is very important for claims type positions because, as I've said in other videos, it can be a lot of work, and the amount of work can be stressful and overwhelming if you don't have a system. Now, the issue is, even if you have a system, sometimes just the amount of work that you can get at any given time or period can make things a little stressful, but the best adjusters have really good organization. So my suggestion is always like play up like kind of what you do in your day. How do you start your day to ensure that you're getting all of your tasks done? What do you have in place to make sure that you're not missing anything? That kind of stuff. So you want to play up like how you've done that in your previous jobs. You want to play up how you've done that maybe with your schoolwork, maybe with your home life, things like that. You want to talk about it in a way where you can tie it into how you would be organized at the job. Like, obviously, they're not hiring you for your personal life. They're not hiring you for what you did in school. But if you don't have previous experience, those are things that you can kind of talk about and then figure out a way to apply those to the position at hand. So discuss how you plan on like organizing your day based on the information that you know about the role, so they can kind of get an idea of how you set things up and how you plan to execute the job once you get it. Okay, so this tip, my number 4 tip, is going to be geared more towards my experienced adjusters, my experienced insurance professionals, but you want to go in there and you want to talk your shit humbly, but you want to talk your shit. Talk about your certifications, talk about your accomplishments, talk about how you were, the top performing person in your department. Talk about all that stuff, because this helps them to, again, put a face with the name and with your resume. This helps them to see how you're going to bring value into the organization. I do feel that with some people, when they get into interviews, it's easy to get intimidated because obviously this person that is interviewing you has the power in the short term to change your life, whether that be for the good or if you don't get the job, maybe the bad. I do feel like anything that's meant for you, you will have, but that's a whole other story. So this person in the moment does have a lot of power, but you also have to understand that they looked at your resume and saw that you had enough skills and they were intrigued enough to call you in for the interview. So they already see something in you. It's just your job to prove that what they're seeing is exactly what it is. Come in there with the attitude like the job is already mine, but obviously still be humble because it ain't yours yet. But you still want to kind of have that mindset like, I already have the job. I just need to prove to them that I'm the person for the job. So come in there, be confident, take your deep breaths, say your affirmations before you come in, but make sure that you are talking about everything that you've accomplished, because especially once you start to get like higher up in these insurance positions, you've done a lot. Trust me, I've been doing it for 7 years, and like where I started is nowhere where I am now, if that makes sense. Like, I'm so much further now than I was when I started. Even though when I started, I had experience still, but I'm such a better adjuster. I have so many more certifications. I have so much more experience now than I did back then. So when I interview these days, I can brag on it. I can talk my shit because I've walked the walk. So just make sure that you are letting them know, hey, I'm the person for the job and this is why. I've done this, I've done this, I've done this. I, have this certification, all this, that, and the third. Really sell yourself. Okay, so my 5th tip is to be upfront and honest about your weaknesses, but also explain how you've overcome them. So I think sometimes when people get into interviews, you talk about the good. Obviously, there's plenty of good, but everybody has a weakness. Everybody has something that they're working on. Everybody has something that they're probably not the best at, which is why there are different roles for different people. That it's normal. But when that question comes up, like what are your weaknesses or whatever, don't just say nothing. And my personal preference is not to use like super cliche things. I mean, if it's true, then whatever. But then, you got a lot of people that say things like, oh, I work too hard or stuff like that. Like, don't come in there giving those type of answers, because I feel like the interviewer can call bullshit. For me, for example, one thing that I did struggle with in the very beginning when I was getting into insurance is organization. Now, overall, I do feel like I'm an organized person, but just learning how to do the insurance job, learning how to quote the policy and things like that, I wasn't as organized because I just legitimately didn't know what I was doing. So that's something that I talk about when I interview. I tell them straight up, like, yeah, this was something that I struggled with, but I did this, and this to overcome it. So some of the things, like, since we're on the subject, some of the things that I did to overcome it, I started making templates, which I've talked about in different videos. I started creating a streamlined process to where my days look the same. Obviously, things are going to deviate depending on the day, but I have a process that I stick to that ensures that I get things done. So these are things that you want to talk about in your interviews, and just being upfront about what those weaknesses are, because nobody wants somebody coming in saying like, oh, I got this, I have it, because you can say that, but if you get the job and you really don't have it, then now you're sitting there looking foolish. So be upfront about your weaknesses, but be confident enough to say, hey, this is something that I struggle with, but this is what I've done to overcome that. So don't be afraid to talk about those weaknesses, because there's always something. Even the interviewer has weaknesses. There's always something that you can do better on, and that you will do better on if given the opportunity. Okay, so my sixth tip, this is not just for insurance professionals. This is really for everyone, but I do feel like what has helped me get the job that I've gotten is to ask meaningful questions. So there's always going to come a point in the interview where the person has asked you questions, and you've answered it based on your resume, based on like processes, whether that be telling stories or whatever. But there's going to come a point in the interview where they ask you if you have any questions for them. Now, I'm a big believer that when you are in the interview process, they're interviewing you, but you're also interviewing them. This is kind of like your time to talk to somebody, an actual representative of the company, and see, is this something that I really want to do, right? You need to be comfortable just like they need to be comfortable. So when it comes time to ask questions, have some questions prepared that you can ask them. One thing, I believe that shows confidence, and then two, it shows that you've kind of done your research and that you're serious about the position. So some questions that I typically like to ask, depending on the role that I'm in, I'll ask the person, like, what traits do you think that a successful adjuster has? Like, what traits do you see make the best adjusters? I'll ask questions like, what is a typical day in the life look like? So they can kind of walk me through, like, what should I expect when I get here? Just so I can have that idea in my mind to decide, okay, do I want to do this? Do I not want to do it? Things like that. You can ask different things about the organization. You can ask about, benefits, all kinds of stuff. This is your time to shine. So I typically say have about like 3 to 4 kind of generic questions on hand to ask. Centered around the job, centered around the benefits, centered around training. I typically ask them about that. What does the training look like? What are you expecting from me in training? That kind of thing. But then also some questions will come up after you talk to them about the company. Like once they tell you this is that, you might have a question to come up there. So don't ever be afraid to ask questions. They really want you to do that. And I think that that separates the people who get the job from some of those who may or may not get the job. I think that not asking questions can sometimes make it seem like you're not interested. Don't quote me on that, but I feel like it gives off that vibe. Like, oh yeah, I don't have anything to ask. Like, no, ask some questions because, you want to just kind of show that you're engaged. Okay, so the last thing that I want to discuss is appearance in these interviews. Again, this is not something that is specific to the insurance industry, but it's something that I feel like really helps, with these type of interviews. Now, a lot of us are interviewing from home because of the pandemic. So I typically make sure that I am professional from, the head to my waist, and then I have on, whatever bottoms, whether that be sweats or biker shorts or whatever, I decide to wear that day. I think that you should dress for the industry. So if it's a more casual industry, maybe you can get away with dressing a little more casual. I've always worked in industries where they kind of require like business professional or business casual. So I always have a blazer on hand. Back in the day, I used to have a little sweater set. You remember when the girls were wearing sweater sets? I used to have those. Even sometimes today, just because of, again, just, what's going on. Sometimes I will wear like a nice sweater, something muted. I think that with colors, for me personally, I like to wear neutral colors. So like your blacks, your whites, your tans, your, maybe super light pinks, grays, things like that. So as to not draw attention. for my ladies, and even for men. You know, if you have earrings, I wouldn't wear these earrings to an interview. I would wear probably studs, or if I do wear hoops, then I'm wearing like very small hoops. And then with hair, now hair can be tricky with, you know, us curly hair folks. We all know that we just got the right really to not be discriminated against, like with the hair, so that's a whole other situation. But for me personally, I'm not straightening my hair for an interview, but I will wear my hair in a very low-key style. So my go-to style, just so there's no fuss, so there's no issue, is to wear it like back in a bun so you can see my full face, and you know, there's nothing to talk about there. My biggest thing when it comes to dressing the part for these interviews is I don't want to give you anything to pay attention to but what I'm speaking about. I don't want you fixated on my earrings. I don't want you fixated on my hairstyle. I don't want you fixated on my shirt or anything like that. I'm going to dress as basic can be, professional, clean, all that good stuff, because I want you to concentrate on what I'm talking about. So I wanted to kind of clear that up, because I am in no way, shape, or form saying like not to wear your hair the way you want to wear your hair, but I think the biggest thing is just to dress in a way where you're not drawing attention, you're not doing anything extra. Just come very basic, because it's not a fashion show, it is an interview. So I think that's the biggest thing. And this is going to be whether you're in person or whether you're remote. So like there's even times where, depending on what's going on, I may wear my glasses. I'm not saying wear your glasses, but sometimes I'll do that. Like I'll be trying to look studious and all of that. But yeah, just come, you know, super simple, clean, and, you know, ready to go. So when your name comes up later on, when they're discussing like, you know, who they may or may not want to hire, they're not talking about anything else. They're only talking about like what you bring to the table. So that's been working for me, and that's the advice I'm going to give to you guys. All right, you guys, so I know that was a mouthful, okay? A mouthful, but I appreciate the young lady that gave me this video idea, because I do think that was something that was missing from my channel. And I mean, it's great because a lot of you guys have expressed interest in getting into the insurance industry. And even if you're already in the industry, I do think that it's good to just kind of have like some interview tips. I feel like interviews can just be nerve-wracking no matter how long you've been in the industry. And I'm talking about insurance specifically, but really in any industry. Even though I'm very confident in my skills, I know I can get the job done, I know I'm the woman for the job, you know what I'm saying? Like I still get cold feet when I go into interviews. I still get nervous. Typically for me though, once I get into the interview and once I see who I'm talking to and I kind of, you know, catch their vibes, I'm usually okay. But I also understand that for some people, it's similar to taking a test where you just might not be good in interviews, you know? And there are a lot of things you can overcome. Like, I just feel like, you know, if you're doing a remote interview or whatever, make sure that your equipment is working beforehand. Like, don't wait until it's time for the interview. Try to, you know, log in beforehand. So just in case you're having any type of technical issues, you can address that. Make sure that you're in a quiet space, that kind of thing. Make sure that your background isn't busy. You know, if you're doing this remotely, like, you know, nobody wants to see a pile of clothes or whatever. And sometimes I'll have a pile of clothes, but then I'll be sitting on the other side of the bed, or, you know, I'm at my desk. So definitely you just want to kind of take some of those things into account when you're interviewing. But specifically for insurance interviews, there are going to be things that you want to talk about and things that you want to bring to the forefront before the interview ends. So if this video helped you and you found something useful in it, please go on ahead and give it a like. That really helps with the YouTube algorithm. If you made it this far and you have not subscribed, go on ahead and click that subscribe button below. Be sure to turn on your notifications so you don't miss anything from me. And with that being said, you guys have an amazing day, and I'll see you next time.
You mad that they don't salute you. I need a bag, size is super. They turned your bag, it's like I never knew you.